The night began like any other family gathering at my in-laws' house. Loud conversations, the clinking of glasses, and the usual forced smiles. It was routine, predictable, and utterly unremarkable. Or so I thought. I had just stepped away from the dining table, heading toward the kitchen for another drink, when I heard my wife's voice. Something about her tone stopped me in my tracks, just outside the doorway. "I told you, Mom, marrying him was the best financial decision I ever made," she said, her voice laced with smug satisfaction. I froze. My first instinct was to believe I had misheard her. But then she continued. "He's completely clueless," she laughed. "I've been moving money for years, and he hasn't noticed a thing. Honestly, I don't even know how he runs a business when he can't see what's happening right under his nose." A cold wave of realization crashed over me. My wife, the woman I had trusted, the person I had built a life with, was boasting about using me. Not just admitting it, but reveling in it. Her mother chuckled approvingly. "Smart girl. You learn well. Remember what I told you? Secure yourself first." That's what I did with his father. I gripped the doorframe to steady myself. His father? My father? Was she saying my mother had done the same thing? That my father had been deceived just as I was now? "How much have you moved?" her mother asked. "Enough," my wife replied. "I set up the accounts years ago. Everything's under my sister's name. If anything happens, there's no way he can trace it back to me." A slow-burning rage crept up my spine. Yet, I didn't move. I didn't storm in. I didn't confront them. Instead, I listened. "You're being careful, right?" her mother pressed. "Of course," she scoffed. "I make small transfers, little by little. Nothing too big to raise suspicion. And I keep expenses just high enough that he doesn't question where the money is going. He thinks I'm just bad with budgeting." They both laughed. "I never loved him," my wife admitted casually. "I just saw an opportunity, and I took it." My fingers curled into fists, but I remained still. This wasn't the moment. Years in business had taught me patience, strategy. I had negotiated high-stakes deals and handled crises with a level head. This was no different. If anything, it was bigger. My wife hadn't just been overspending or hiding a shopping addiction. She had orchestrated a years-long financial heist right under my nose. And the worst part? Her mother approved. She was proud. I stepped back, quietly retreating before either of them noticed my presence. My mind raced, already working through the next steps. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to demand answers. I was going to find out exactly how much she had taken. And when the time was right, I would make her pay for every single dollar. The rest of the night passed in a blur. I went through the motions, keeping my expression neutral, forcing small talk, pretending nothing had changed. Inside, I was already laying the groundwork for what was to come. If she thought I was clueless, I'd let her keep thinking that. For now. The next morning, I locked myself in my home office under the guise of catching up on work. But I wasn't working. I was tearing through every financial record I could find: bank statements, credit card bills, investment accounts, anything with my name on it. I needed to see what I had been missing. At first, everything looked normal. Too normal. Then I started digging deeper. There were transactions I had never paid attention to before, small amounts transferred out consistently, always under different labels. A few hundred here, a couple thousand there. Just low enough to avoid drawing suspicion. But when I totaled them up, the numbers were staggering. She had been siphoning money for years. I traced the payments, but they didn't lead to an account under her name. She had been too careful for that. Then I remembered her words. Everything was under her sister's name. I searched for financial connections between them, and that's when I struck gold. Her sister had investment accounts that didn't match her salary. There was no reason for her to have that kind of money. Yet there it was, regular deposits, steady growth. The money my wife had stolen had been funneled through different channels, laundered, and stored under a name I wouldn't have looked at under normal circumstances. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was the sheer calculation of it all, the layers of deception, the arrogance to believe I would never catch on. I needed professionals. I called in a financial auditor, someone I trusted, someone completely outside of our usual circles. I fed him the details and had him dig deeper. The results confirmed what I already knew. My wife had turned our marriage into a long-term financial scheme. The next step was securing my own assets. I consulted a legal team specializing in both divorce and financial fraud. They helped me put everything in motion, securing assets, freezing accounts, and ensuring she couldn't siphon another cent from me. But confronting her outright? That would be far too simple. I wanted her to believe she had won, to keep smiling, playing the role of the perfect wife, oblivious to the fact that the ground beneath her was already crumbling. With my legal team working behind the scenes and irrefutable evidence in hand, I moved swiftly. The first step was locking down every account under my name. New passwords, tighter security, assets moved into protected holdings beyond her reach. Next, I shut down joint accounts and canceled every credit card she had access to. But I couldn't be reckless. If she caught on too soon, she might try to cover her tracks, or worse, make a desperate attempt to drain what was left. So I dismantled her scheme methodically, step by step, ensuring she remained blissfully unaware. Her confidence was her greatest weakness, and I exploited it. She never even noticed when the money stopped flowing. The real turning point was the investment accounts under her sister's name. My legal team worked quickly, tracing the funds directly back to me. Since they had originated from marital assets, we had enough leverage to freeze and recover a substantial portion. Meanwhile, I restructured my business holdings, ensuring she wouldn't see a dime in the divorce. She had spent years playing a long game, convinced she was untouchable, but I was about to show her just how wrong she was. The first signs of her downfall came subtly. One evening, she casually mentioned her card had been declined. She laughed it off, assuming it was a bank error. I played along. Yeah, banks do that sometimes. You should give them a call. Over the next few days, her frustration grew. Payments wouldn't go through. Transactions failed. Accounts she had relied on for years were suddenly restricted. I watched her carefully, seeing the confusion flicker behind her eyes. But she said nothing. She still believed she was in control, and I let her. She continued playing the devoted wife, smiling as if everything was perfect. She thought she still held all the cards. That's what made our anniversary dinner the perfect moment to crush her illusion. She planned it just like always. Expensive restaurant, fine wine, the performance of a loving wife celebrating another year of marriage. I played along, smiling, nodding, letting her believe I was still the clueless husband she had fooled for years. Then, as dessert arrived, she slid a sleek black box across the table, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Happy anniversary, she purred. I lifted the lid. Inside was a luxury watch, expensive, meticulously chosen, a symbol of her supposed devotion. This is nice, I said, turning it over in my hands. Must have cost a fortune. She tilted her head, feigning innocence. You deserve the best. I set the box down, met her gaze. Funny thing about this watch, I said, voice calm. It was purchased with a credit card tied to an account that no longer exists. Her smile faltered. Just for a second. What do you mean? Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out a small folder and placed it on the table between us. No theatrics, no grand reveal, just cold, hard evidence. Take a look. She hesitated before flipping it open. Her eyes skimmed the pages, bank statements, transaction records, a full breakdown of every dollar she had stolen. Every account, every transfer, every deception laid bare. Her fingers tightened around the folder. I don't understand. I leaned forward, my voice like steel. I think you do. The color drained from her face. Panic flickered in her eyes as she flipped through the pages faster, her breath coming shallow, her carefully crafted world crumbling with every line she read. She swallowed hard. I can explain. I shook my head. No need. She blinked, processing my words. The accounts you funneled money into? Frozen. The investments under your sister's name? Reclaimed. The assets you thought were secure? Gone. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I leaned in slightly. And here's the best part. I continued, my voice calm but firm. I documented everything. Every transfer, every deception, every last cent. She finally found her voice. We can talk about this. Work something out. I laughed. No, we can't. I stood, tossing a few bills onto the table for the meal. Enjoy your evening. It's the last time you'll be spending my money. I turned and walked away, leaving her there, stunned, clutching that folder like it was the last piece of control she had. But she wasn't ready to accept it yet. She'd go home, tearing through every account, every card, every so-called backup plan. And she'd find nothing. That night, the call started. First, a single missed call. Then another. By morning, my phone was flooded with messages, confusion, anger, desperation. I ignored them all. Then came the confrontation. She stormed into my office, eyes wild, voice shaking between fury and panic. "You can't do this," she snapped, slamming the folder onto my desk like it still held some kind of power over me. I didn't even flinch. I leaned back, watching her unravel. I already did. She inhaled sharply, fighting for control. "You're being ridiculous. This is our money. We're married." "Not for long." I slid a single document toward her, divorce papers. Neatly prepared, every cent accounted for. She wouldn't get a dime. Her face drained of color. "You can't just cut me off," she stammered. "I have rights." I smirked. "You had rights. You lost them the moment you started stealing from me." For the first time, she had no response. She gripped the edge of my desk, eyes darting, calculating, searching for a loophole, a way out. That's when I delivered the final blow. "I'm pressing charges." She flinched as if I'd struck her. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Fraud, embezzlement, financial deception." I listed them off like I was reading a balance sheet. "I have the evidence. I have the legal team. You won't just lose the money, you'll lose everything." She staggered back, her confidence shattering. "You wouldn't," she whispered. I tilted my head. "Wouldn't I?" And that was the moment she realized, really realized, she had lost. The arrogance, the smug superiority, the control she thought she had, it all crumbled in front of me. Her next move was predictable. Tears, apologies, desperate pleas for forgiveness. Too late. She had spent years treating me like a fool, like a resource to be drained. Now, she was the one with nothing left. The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal battles, frozen accounts, and desperate attempts to negotiate. She tried everything, begging, threatening, even manipulating mutual friends to take her side. None of it worked. The divorce went through quickly. With airtight evidence of fraud, she had no leverage. She walked away with nothing. No settlement. No assets. No stake in my business. Every cent she stole was either recovered or seized. The house. Mine. The cars. Mine. The secret investments under her sister's name. Legally tied to my finances and reclaimed. And the best part? She wasn't just broke. She was in debt. The legal fees alone drained what little she had left. Her mother, who had encouraged her from the start, wasn't much better off. She built her comfort on the assumption that my ex would keep funneling money into their lifestyle. But when the cash flow stopped, so did the luxuries. No more shopping sprees. No more extravagant vacations. No more effortless comfort. She even tried reaching out to me, a pathetic attempt to smooth things over. I didn't bother responding. She was just as guilty as her daughter. As for my ex-wife, she was forced to sell everything just to survive. The designer bags, the jewelry, the car she once flaunted, all gone. Even her so-called friends, the ones who clung to her when she had money, vanished the moment she lost it. I had no interest in watching her downfall, but I knew enough. She was struggling, and I didn't care. I had wasted enough time, money, and trust on someone who saw me as nothing more than an investment. She thought she had played the perfect long game, but in the end, she was the one left with nothing. As for me, I thrived. With my finances secured, I focused on expanding my business with a new perspective, stronger oversight, better people, no one like her. For the first time in years, I was truly in control, not just of my business, but of my life. I had no regrets. If anything, I was grateful for the lesson, because now, no one would ever take advantage of me again.